I accidentally found out that my best friend is my wife's real father, but she doesn't know. I'm 36. I live in Boston. I work as an archivist at a history museum. My wife is Claire. She's 34. We've been together for 8 years, married for 5. We have a son, Liam, who's 3. Life isn't perfect, but it's real. We laugh, we fight, we cook together, we watch old movies while Liam sleeps. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew her story. Her father is Richard. He died when she was 12. A car accident. Claire rarely talked about him. Only the good. He loved gardening. He taught me how to fish. He was strong. And he always said, "You can do anything." I've seen the photos. Old, yellowed. A man with a gray beard, wearing work gloves, smiles by the fence. I thought I knew him. And then I found the papers. It was by accident. I was helping my best friend, Mark, sort through his papers after his mother died. Mark is a friend of mine from college. We were inseparable. Trips, parties, crises, weddings. He was best man at my wedding. Claire says he's like a brother. His mother lived in an old house in Newport. We found a chest of papers, old letters, extracts, medical records. And among them was a birth certificate. Not Mark's. Someone else's. Name, Claire E. Whitaker. Date of birth, March 12, 1990. Father, Mark A. Taylor. Mother, Elizabeth Taylor. I didn't recognize the last name, but the name, Claire, struck me like a bolt of lightning. I checked the date. It matched. I opened the photo on my phone. Claire's child. I looked at Mark, at his face, at the shape of his nose, at the location of the mole near his ear, and in that moment I realized, this can't be a coincidence. "Mark," I said, "is that your sister?" He fell silent, not surprised, not scared, just looked at me, for a long time like someone who had been waiting for this moment. "Yes," he said, "Claire is my little sister, but she doesn't know. Nobody knows." Why? Because our parents decided to hide it. Mother got pregnant by another man, but her husband, Richard, took the child as his own, to save the marriage, to keep her life from being ruined. And Claire grew up believing that Richard was her father. Did you know? Yes. I always knew. But Mom said, "If you tell, you'll ruin her world." And I kept quiet. "But I'm your friend. I'm her husband. I have a right to know." "I didn't want you to choose between us," he said. "I didn't want you to look at her differently, so that you would think she's not who she says she is. But she doesn't know who she is. She knows who she is," he said. "She is Richard's daughter in her heart, and that is more important than DNA." I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go home and look at her, knowing that her father was my best friend, that her dead father was a lie, that her whole story was hidden. And then Mark said, "I'm not asking you to be silent forever, but I'm asking you, don't destroy her now. Let her live. And when she's ready, she'll find the truth for herself." I left, without saying anything. And that night, as Claire put Liam to bed, I stood in the doorway and thought, can I continue to live with this secret? Do I have the right to remain silent? Even for a peace of mind? And I didn't know the answer. I couldn't sleep, not because I was angry with Mark, but because I didn't know how to look at Claire. When she smiled, I saw more than just her. I saw Mark. When she talked about her father, I heard more than just nostalgia. I heard lies. And I couldn't figure out whether it was protection or betrayal. The next day I called Dr. Allison, the therapist I had worked with since my father's death. She didn't know Claire. But I said, "I have information I can't reveal, but it's about my marriage, and I don't know if I have the right to remain silent." "Tell me," she said. "No names. Just the facts." I told her, not everything, but enough. That my wife thinks of one man as her father, and that the real father was alive, and that I know the truth. But she doesn't. "And you want to know if you have the right to remain silent?" she asked. Yes. Did she ever ask? No. But she says strange things sometimes. Like, when we look at old photos, she says, "I never looked like him." Or, "Why didn't he ever want to talk about his childhood?" I thought it was just sadness. Or doubt. Allison said, "Many children who grow up with adoptive parents, even if they don't know anything, feel a disconnect. Not because of love, but because of biology. Because their bodies don't respond to abuse the way they should." But she doesn't know anything. But her body does, she said, and her subconscious is searching for answers. And if she's already started asking questions, then she's ready for the truth, even if she doesn't know what she's looking for yet. But if I tell her, I'll destroy her world. Or save her from a lie, she said. The truth doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it does. Especially when you've been feeling that something's wrong for a long time. I got home. Claire was cooking dinner. Liam was drawing on paper. Are you okay? She asked. You're kind of distant. Just tired, I said. But then she said, I was in the archives today. I was looking for a photo of my father. I wanted to show Liam. And what? I couldn't find one. Only one. The one about gardening. But I've never seen that fence. And he never talked about it. Maybe it was before you were born. Maybe, she said. But I feel like I was never in those photos. That they are insincere. What do you mean? I don't know, she said. It's just a feeling. Like someone cut me out of history. And then put me in the wrong place. I fell silent. Have you ever thought he wasn't my father? She asked. No, I said. Why? Because I sometimes think so, she said. Not because he didn't love me. He did. But he never wanted to talk about the past. He never showed me photos of himself as a child. As if his life began when he got married. Maybe he just didn't like photos? Maybe, she said. But I want to know where I'm from. Do I have family somewhere? Am I the only one? I looked at her, and I understood. She is not just asking. She is seeking. And I am standing between her and the truth. And then she said, if you found out something important about me, would you tell? Yes, I said. Even if it hurts. Why? Because love is not only about protecting. It is about honesty. And I do not want us to live in an illusion. She smiled. And in that moment I understood. She is not just ready. She's been waiting for a long time. And I had to decide whether to continue to be the one who hides, or to become the one who helps find. I couldn't answer her question. Would you tell? Not because I was afraid, but because I already knew. I had to. But I couldn't do it alone. Not without Mark. Not without proof. Not without her feeling betrayed by everyone at once. I called him. Claire is getting suspicious, I said. She says she never looked like her father. That the photos look fake. That he never talked about the past. I know, he said. Mom wrote that this would happen. What? She left a letter. For me. And for her. She said, asterisk, when she starts looking, give it to her. And you didn't say anything? I was waiting, he said. Not because I didn't want to. Because I was afraid she would hate me. That she would think I was part of the lie. But you did. Yes, he said. But not because I wanted to betray her. But because I didn't want to destroy her. But now, I think she's ready. Can I see the letter? Yes. Come over. I arrived in a day. Mark was waiting in his yard. He handed me an envelope. An old, yellowed one, with his name and Claire's on it. She wrote it before she died. He said. I wasn't allowed to open it. But I read it. Just once. I opened it. Dear Mark, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. And maybe Claire has started looking. Because she's always been smart. And I could feel when something was wrong. I don't regret hiding it. I did it so she could have a father. Richard was a good man. He took her in. He raised her. He loved her. And she grew up thinking of him as her own. And that was right. But now that she's grown up, she has a right to know where she comes from, who her father is, and why I made this choice. You're her brother. Not by name, but by blood. And you have a right to be the one to tell her the truth. Or help her find her. Not because the past is more important than the present, but because she deserves the full story. Not an illusion. Not a lie. And the truth, even if it hurts. If she asks, don't hide. If she finds, don't deny. And if she doesn't find, help. With love, Mom. I read it twice. Then I looked at Mark. Why didn't you say anything? Because I was afraid she would lose me, he said. That she would think I was part of a conspiracy. That she wouldn't be able to forgive. But she has a right to know. Yes, he said. But I don't know how to say it. I wasn't with her when she was growing up. I didn't hold her when she cried. I wasn't her brother. And now I can't just come up and say, hi, I'm your brother. But you can say, I know who your father is, I said. And give her this letter. Not as a betrayal, but as a gift. He was silent for a long time. If you'll be there, he said. If you say you're in this with me, then I can. I will, I said. Not because it's easy, but because she deserves it. We arranged to meet in a week. Not at a cafe. Not in a park. At our house. Liam in the garden. Claire was making tea. I have something that belongs to you, Mark said as he sat down. What? A letter from my mother. She wrote it for you. She fell silent. She looked at the envelope. She didn't take it right away. Why is it for me? Because it's about you, I said. and about where you're from. What do you mean? Claire, Mark said. You're not Richard's daughter. You're my sister. Your real father is a man my mother dated before she got married. But Richard adopted you as his own, and she didn't want you to not know that. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there. She looked at me. You knew. Yes, I said. But I couldn't have told you before. Not without you. Not without him. Not without this letter. She took the envelope. Her hands were shaking. She opened it. She read for a long time. And when she was done, she looked at Mark. So, you're my brother? Yes, he said. And I'm so glad you found out. She didn't say much. After the letter, silence. Long, heavy, like someone trying to put together a puzzle piece, and suddenly realizing that the picture on the box wasn't the right one. We sat together in the evening. Liam was asleep. Mark had left. Claire held the letter in her hands, as if it might disappear if she let go. He was alive? She asked. My biological father? Yes, I said. Mark said he lives in Maine. He works as a forest ranger. Unmarried. And he doesn't know anything about you. And your mother? Why didn't she ever tell you? Because she decided it was better to have a father who accepted you than one who might reject you. And Richard, he was that father. But he was a lie, she said. Every day, every photo, I remember my dad teaching me, was a lie. No, I said, he wasn't a lie. He was a choice. He chose you. And that's no less true than DNA. She paused. Then she said, I want to find him. My biological father. Not because I want to replace Richard, but because I want to know who I am. Do I have sisters, brothers? Did I inherit his eyes? Did he ever think about me? And if he doesn't want to see you, then I'll at least try, she said, and not live with the question for the rest of my life. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I understood it wasn't my choice. This was her path, and I can only be the one to hold her hand when she leaves. A week later, Mark gave us a name, David Morgan. The address is a small house in the woods, by a lake. The phone number is an old one, probably rarely used. I don't want him to think we're demanding, she said. I'll write a letter, not an email, by hand, so he can see that it's serious. She wrote all evening, rewrote it 3 times. I didn't read it, but when she handed the envelope over, I saw that her name was on the envelope, Claire Morgan. Not Whitaker, not Reed, Morgan. 10 days later, she got a response. Not a letter. A call. It's David, a man's voice said. I got your letter. And I don't know what to say. But I'm glad you found me. She put the speakerphone on. I was sitting next to her. I don't want anything from you, she said. No money. No recognition. I just want to know who you are. And have you ever thought about me? Yes, he said. Every year. March 12th. I knew your mother had decided to leave you with Richard. She said it was best for you. And I had no right to interfere. But I never forgot. And I always had a picture of you as a child. The one she gave me. And why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't want to destroy what she had built, he said. But if you want to know me, I'm here. She cried. Not from pain, but from relief. Because he didn't reject her. What he thought of her. That she wasn't a mistake. Can I come? She asked. Yes, he said. Whenever you want. 2 weeks later we left. Not together. I stayed with Liam. She said. This has to be just between us. The first meeting. The first step. I nodded. And as she got into the car, I said, You're not losing Richard. You're just finding yourself. She smiled and drove away. 3 days later she came back. She gave me a long hug. He looks like me, she said. The same curve of her nose. The same way she laughs. He showed me a picture of himself when he was younger. I recognized myself. And what next? I want to meet, she said. Not as a daughter looking for a father, but as a person who wants to know her beginning. But Richard is still my father. He raised me. He loved me. And no one can change that. And Mark? He is my brother, she said. And I am glad that he was with me, even when he did not know how to say it. I sat and understood. This is not the end of the secret. This is the beginning of a new life. Not with illusions, but with a choice. And she chose the truth, even if it breaks her heart. 6 months had passed. Claire had been seeing David. Not often. Not as father and daughter for the first time, but as 2 people trying to figure out if they could be a part of each other's lives. He would come to our house. Simple. No drama. He brought an old box with photos, letters, even her first toy her mother had given him. I kept it, he said, not because I expected it, but because I couldn't throw it away. She hugged him. Not right away. After a few meetings. And when it did, I could see something inside her calm down. Mark had become a part of her life, not as the unexpected brother, but as someone who had always been in her world, just under a different name. They began calling each other sister and brother, and it didn't sound far-fetched, and like something that was always meant to be. And then she said, I want to make an album, not about the past, but about who I am now, and who mine are. I helped. We collected the photos, not in chronological order, but by feeling. One photo is Richard in the garden, holding little Claire on his shoulders. Caption: You taught me to look up. Another is David, holding Liam for the first time. Caption: You gave me a start. A photo with Mark. At my wedding, they're laughing. Caption: You were there even when I didn't know who you were. And one photo, all the men she calls fathers. Richard, in the old photo. David, fresh, smiling. Mark, next to her. And me, with Liam in my arms. The caption underneath it: My family. Not by blood, by choice. She showed me the album that evening. This isn't about forgetting Richard, she said. It's about allowing yourself to have more than one truth. Are you sure? Yes, she said. Richard was my father. He raised me. He loved me. But now I know. I have another father, the one who gave me life. And a brother, the one who kept my story. And a husband, the one who didn't betray me, even when he knew the truth. She looked at me. You could have run away. You could have said it wasn't yours. But you stayed. And that's the most important thing. I couldn't speak. I just hugged her. And a month later we drove to Maine. All of us together. Even Liam. David made dinner. Mark helped. Claire laughed. And I stood on the porch and watched them, all of them, sit at the same table. And in that moment I realized, family is not something you're born with. It's something you keep, that you fix, that you choose. And when Claire came over and took my hand and said, Thank you for not letting me stay in a lie, I knew I wasn't just her husband. I am the one who helped her find herself.